Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 24th, 2017 regularly scheduled meeting of the Hsdsb School Board. Melissa?
Yes. Kathleen Aberzizi.
Here.
Jason Cipriano.
Here.
Caitlin Parnell. Here. Jim Sweeney.
Here.
And Karen Yusenka.
Here.
Also seated at the board table is Assistant Superintendent Dr. Roxanne Wilson.
Thank you. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight you see before us 3 sets of minutes for approval. One from the regular meeting of October 10th, a non-public from October 10th, and our budget work session from October 17th. Would you please take a look at them and see if you have any additions or corrections? I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Melissa, do we have any public comments?
There were no requests tonight for public comment.
All right, thank you. First up for current business is our response to the New Hampshire School Board Association call for resolutions. Pending advice from legal, the board will vote whether or not to submit a proposed resolution for the 2018 Delegate Assembly. This requires approval of the board by majority vote in order to be included for consideration in January. And the deadline for submitting the proposal is November 3rd. And Kathleen has been working on this along with Jason Cipriano, and I'm not sure where it is legally. Has it been, you have a response back?
We have it right here underneath the packet from Hsdsb.
Oh, okay.
The recommended changes that I made are in blue.
Okay.
And
Got it, thanks.
the proposed changes from the attorney are in red, and also he crossed out a lot of my blue. So what we're left with is 659:44, electioneering at the polling place. Our proposed change would be no election officer as defined in RSA 652:14 shall electioneer while in performance of his or her official duties at the polling place. For the purposes of this section, electioneer means to act in any way specifically designed to influence the vote of a voter on any question. It looks like he crossed off or office as well. Then it would continue to say, any person who violates this provision shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. I think we should really consider keeping or office in on this section as it relates to conduct at the polling place. I don't know if that was just an oversight on his behalf, but I would recommend that we keep that part in there. Is everybody following along?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Anybody have any questions?
Can I just make a clarifying comment?
Yeah.
Even if they're going for office, that isn't usually a form of a question, so it could be covered. Anyone who's being elected for office
Oh, you think that's what it is?
would be still under a question?
I would still be, I would be reluctant to agree to that interpretation only because I've seen laws get misinterpreted.
And it's in the original anyway.
Yeah, it is in the original, so it really wouldn't be a change
Yeah.
from the original of that. But that's helpful insight.
Is there a term that could encompass both? Isn't question?
Any warrant article item, but that doesn't necessarily cover presidential elections and the like. Only local elections would apply.
I would tend to agree with you that we should leave in or office, because I think as someone trying to interpret this or reading it, it clarifies it more to leave or office in.
I don't see any harm in leaving it in,
Okay.
where it could be up for misinterpretation if you took it out.
Right.
So I would agree we leave it in.
Okay. The second change is reflected on the back. So proposed changes, the section in red, 659:44-A, electioneering by public employees. Let's see. So he agrees with the change to remove question from this one of the definition in electioneer under section Roman numeral 3, or subsection Roman numeral 3. And then my added number 5 has been edited, saying this provision shall not alter or interfere with the rights of any public employee from engaging activities protected under RSA 98E. But all of the other words that I added in there got removed, which I understand.
Does RSA 98E cover basically what he crossed out?
Yeah, it does. I mean, 98E, I had a copy for you guys last week.
Oh, no.
I don't know if it's in here
It is,
this
you're right.
week.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, I didn't even see all this. Okay, yeah. That 98E is titled Public Officers and Employees, Public Employee Freedom of Expression. So freedom of expression, the definitions, interference prohibited. So 98E2 says interference prohibited. No person shall interfere in any way with the right of freedom of speech, full criticism, or disclosure by any public employee. So I think that suffices. I agree with the attorney's changes, except for that one in the first that I pointed out with the or office. I'm trying to find, okay, there's a section where on the form itself, we have to provide a rationale for the proposed resolution. And I had written out a draft of the rationale, and I'm trying to locate that.
Yeah, we need the brief rationale or an explanation of the purpose of the proposal. So either.
All right, so the rationale that I have written is electioneering to clarify the New Hampshire laws 659:44 and 659:44A that refer to electioneering as to eliminate interpretations that contradict the intent of the law, as well as eliminating interpretation that conflict with civil rights and personal freedoms, including but not limited to those contained in the First Amendment and the government speech doctrine. I don't know if it's necessary since, well, it may be necessary to also include just a brief description of the First Amendment and what the government speech doctrine is. And for those of you that don't know, it's a federal constitutional law that says that the government is not infringing the free speech rights of individual people when the government declines to use viewpoint neutrality in its own speech. More generally, the degree to which governments have free speech rights remains unsettled, including the degree of free speech rights that states may have under the First Amendment versus federal speech restrictions. But if you look up the case law on the government speech doctrine, it's been held up by federal court again and again that government bodies can advertise publicize and promote government initiatives. So, I don't know if it's necessary to include, like I said, the First Amendment and the government speech doctrine, like summaries of these things, or if that's more of a presentation to be had at the delegation.
I think that's more of a discussion point versus an inclusion.
Yeah, so then,
I don't think they'll read it. They're going to get I would assume they get a lot of these, and they're not going to have time to read all that.
so then that brings me back to just that little paragraph at the rationale, just to clarify these laws.
Yeah, the rationale
Yep.
is generally just pretty short, two,
Right.
3 sentences. You can try to write longer, but it's generally needs to be pretty short.
Yeah. So,
So what's the pleasure of the board?
I think this is great. And I would support moving it forward and having Kathleen submit it. The only thing, if you're going to reference something, does it make sense to reference 98E since that is a New Hampshire?
yeah, that one, I mean, it's in there for one of the proposed changes.
Just that it conflicts, as the wording as it currently stands, could be seen as conflicting with this. So we've got, I don't know. I'm trying to figure a way to keep it brief.
Yeah,
You can tell me no, Kathleen, it's okay.
I don't think it's necessary, just because it's not necessary with their first Roman numeral, where it references, this is on 65944A, where it references the definition of the public employee. It doesn't make any other reference other than what the RSA is. So
Okay.
as long as the law points to the RSA, then it's just a Google search away.
Okay.
But yes, as part of the presentation at the Assembly of Delegates. But just to clarify, it does say school board authorized signature on this form. So I can make this really clean for you based on, what we agreed to tonight, and then send it over. So all you have to do is just go through the motions and submit it in.
Sounds good?
Yep.
All right.
Sounds
Should
good.
we vote? Because it does say that
I'd
it
like
has
a
to
motion,
be.
please.
Make a motion to have Kathleen finalize and give to you to submit
For submission
for
to
submission to the
New Hampshire School
New
Board
Hampshire School Board
Association.
Association call for resolutions.
I'll second.
For discussion, who's actually going to be presenting? I know Kathleen and Jason.
It's a Saturday in January 20th. The Assembly of Delegates doesn't start until 1 p.m., but there's free workshops beforehand, and registration is open at 9:30 a.m.
Yeah, I'm going to try to,
Be available.
right now, it looks like I'm going to do it.
Okay. There's no further discussion? Have a vote, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And Kathleen, thank you for all the work that you've done on this.
No problem.
I know
Thank
it
you.
takes a chunk of time to just to go through all the RSAs.
Yeah, but it was fun.
Should get your law degree.
Educational. No.
Come on.
I'm not a lawyer.
Okay, next, Dr. Wilson is going to present some historical data and projected numbers for the Hsdsb enrollment report. Take a look at that.
In your packets, you see the most current Hsdsb report. We receive this every October, and it's to help us with our budgeting process. It's a table of historical enrollment numbers, plus they also use that information for projecting going out 5 to 10 years. We have found when we use these reports that the best scenario for us is to look no more than 5 years. Sometimes, the variability of the numbers gets greater as you start extrapolating this out even further. But for us, we've been using it as kind of targets for 5 years. And I want to take you on the very first page of the historical enrollment, so you have all the numbers there. As you can see, from really, if you start looking, 5 years back, you can see that we had an enrollment of 1,359. It's all broken into grade level configurations, so you can see what we had at the elementary school, pre-K through grade 4. You can also see in the columns 5 through 8, those are highlighted for you. And then also 9 through 12 would be Pinkerton. So you can see the numbers, and these are all the numbers that are reported as of October 1. So, you know, if you go back to 2013-14, you can see we had, you know, 1359 in the district. Currently, we have, for this year, 1318. So 1,318 students. As you can see from the historical enrollment, one of the things that you will see is that this year we have 465 students at Central School. The enrollment or the projection last year was 444. So we are clearly over that by 21 students. And they're in many different classrooms. They're not just in one grade level. It's across the board. The middle school, you'll see that we're at 415 this year. We dropped a classroom, and therefore one of our teachers went over to the elementary school in deference to the drop in numbers from last year. But you can see, again, the numbers from Pinkerton as well went up just a bit from last year. So the historical information helps you kind of gives you a scenario of where we've been. The projections, which are based on births and based on a formula that Hsdsb uses, is on what I called page 3. And those projections, you want to look at I guess the box that's on the lower left. We use those highlighted columns again to help guide us for our budgeting process. So for this year, we have 465 at the Central School. Again, 20 more than we expected, and we have kept saying that, you know, people will say, oh, we're declining. Our enrollments are not declining in Hampstead, especially at the elementary school, and we have said this over and over again. Yes, we've seen some decline at the middle school, but overall, the elementary school, next year, we are projected to have 489. That's quite a number, but from what we saw this year, it's not unreasonable, because we did see 20 more kids than we were expecting. And if you look for the next 5 years, you're all the way down to 511 students in 2021 and 22. So the conversations that we've been having about looking at improving the Central School facility for safety purposes and for instructional purpose are valid. And we can see that this is coming through loud and clear in terms of our enrollment projections. The middle school, you will see that the number is going to be right around, it's going to be somewhat stable for the next 5 years. It's going to be right around that 400 mark. From 399 to 412. So it's going to be somewhat stable for the middle school. And the high school, we're going to have a little bit of a bubble right now. 443, and then in 2019-20, it will be 437, and then it goes to 440, and then the next year it drops down because we're going to start seeing some of that bubble that is going through the system. We're going to start seeing it drop down a little bit more. So we're going to have less students at Pinkerton over the 5 years. I have looked at the numbers also in Pinkerton, looking at what our patterns have been over time. And from 9th grade to 10th grade, there's often a drop of an average over the last 5 years of 10 kids. We're not quite sure where the drop goes, but there are 10 students that either go to another school, they move out, they may stay as a freshman, but that pattern is seen over time. We also see that drop from 11th to 12th grade. And again, some of those 11th graders may stay as 11th graders, or maybe they get a GED. They might go to a vocational program of some kind. But we see those 2 grade level transitions with less students than we anticipate. The other grade transitions from 8th to 9th, pretty stable. We know those numbers. We probably add maybe 6 kids on average going from 8th grade to the high school, so we can count on those numbers. So over the historical piece to budget projections, you can kind of see why we use these numbers to at least give us a foundation, but we always ask ourselves, are these numbers where we should be? Last year, we took the projections and we were still short and still underneath the projection for the elementary school. So every year we get this done. It helps us with the planning, but I didn't know if you had any other observations or suggestions. We're pretty stable with some elementary increases coming up.
All right, I don't expect you to understand the exact formula that Hsdsb uses to come up with these numbers. But I have some concerns because if they're taking into consideration births, and we have projections all the way out until 2027, those births haven't occurred yet. And 2027, we're projected at 529 at the central school. Well, okay, maybe that's right. I can't give it much credibility without really understanding what formula they're using, because it can't all be births. Now, if I'm looking at 2017-18, they had us at, or we're at 465, correct?
Yes.
That's what we are
That's
currently,
where we are now.
That's our actual.
Yep, that's our actual.
All right, so then 2017-18, oh, okay, so there's less kids, there's less grades that are accounted for in the middle school, because I'm looking at the middle school numbers in the years ahead when these kids should be in middle school, and all the middle school numbers are much less. Is it because of the pre-K or because of the extra grades that the Hampstead Central School accommodates, or are we expecting children to move out of the district before they get to middle school? And how is Hsdsb predicting this?
Can I speak to that real quick?
Go ahead.
Remember that we have a really small 8th grade, excuse me, 5th grade right
Yes.
now. So if you look at those years when it's below 400, those happen to be the years that that very small class is there. I don't think that's, I'm sure it's not the only reason, but that class, I believe, has 80 or 85 kids versus, I know our 8th grade who just left had about 130.
Right.
So that class, I mean, you had 40 to 50
So
kids.
it would carry a lower middle school population on
Yes.
average the years that that class.
Yeah, it's kind of like this bubble that's gone through, and now the class numbers are smaller.
Well, okay, so then maybe it would be more appropriate to compare middle school numbers to future high school numbers. But I'm not seeing any real match-ups there either. I mean, the current middle school population, let's see, the 5th graders, what are they, the class of 2021 right now?
21.
So
for 8th
if I
grade.
look over at 2021, well,
It's your 8th grade class. If you look at the column going across like that, you look at all your 8th grade numbers, and then you go down and across one. Those are they're saying that there's going to be 119 under 8th grade. You see that? Where it says 119?
this is all the blue, the long rectangle box at the top.
Yes. And if you look at grade 8, and you see 119,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Now go over to grade 9 and drop down to where it says 125.
Oh, wait, I said yep, but I found 119 in a different spot. Hang on. 8th grade.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
Now-
119, and then drop
Drop-
down, and it says 125.
Right, so they're expecting that 119 are going to come to Pinkerton plus another 6 kids, because that 6 kids, they could be from other schools, they could be, and they've found over time that more kids come on that freshman year. So that's how you kind of track the transition from year to year.
And then you also said with the 9th and the 10th grade transition, there's usually a drop in numbers.
Yeah, and you see the drop? That's historically, that's what's happened. If you look at the historic, you'll see that pattern. So that
8 to 9,
repeats
9 to
that
10.
pattern in the projection as well.
Right.
Go ahead, Jason.
So the reason why that it picks it up is unless they've changed their modeling. As far as I last knew, they're using a cohort attrition model. So they're reviewing the cohort survival as it progresses through the grades. And so one thing that I brought up previously with Hsdsb is, as far as I know from doing this analysis in the previous years, is that when I look at birth rates and birth rate data for the zip code, what they don't look at is real estate transactions. So they don't tend to pick up when the real estate market picks up quickly, and we see a lot of housing stock moving fast in Hampstead, which is what we've seen in the last couple of years. Someone at our table probably knows it much better than I do, but what we've seen in the last couple of years as empty nesters in town with 3, 4, and even 5-bedroom houses move out of town, and the people most likely to buy a 3, 4, or 5-bedroom home is a family with children. So Hsdsb does not typically capture that as far as I know, but the model they're using is a cohort attrition model.
Right, and it also doesn't track new developments or new real estate builds.
That's correct.
And to your point, Kathleen, we never look beyond 5 years.
Okay.
Even though the numbers are here for valid reasons, it's usually 3 to 5. And that's where we feel pretty good. But that's why every year we redo this to see how the numbers will change so that we have a little bit more of credibility under the numbers.
And even then, it's still only a guideline.
Exactly, exactly. And, you know, preschool, one, you know, doesn't know really a lot of times where preschool or kindergarten, if they're going to be coming. We have a better idea now because we have our own kindergarten, obviously. It makes a difference. But you never really know for preschool until they actually come.
Okay.
But this is just an example of, you know, one piece of information as we go through budgeting, but it at least gives us something or a target. It helps us with Pinkerton as well. But I always look at those numbers a little bit more closely because there's so much more volatility from grade to grade transition, especially when kids are collecting credits and sometimes don't make it to the next grade in the same amount of time that other kids do.
Well, do they have the opportunity for early graduation at Pinkerton as well?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big picture, the big message about this is that we continue, our district, you know, is continuing to grow. You'll see that in our budget presentation as well. It's not on a decline that we would be saying, gee, we need to start thinking about our budget in a different way. We have to make sure that we have all the resources we need for the students who are here. So.
Jason?
One thing I would ask the board just be mindful of as we move forward is, you know, we made the decision as a board earlier this year to go with some increased classroom sizes and targeted grades at the central school. And because the growth that we've seen at the school hasn't been exponential, it's really been a couple of kids here and there, we've more or less been able to absorb those additions. But at a certain point, you can absorb and absorb. You will reach a tipping point, right, where we either have to, you know, more significantly, or go once again to increase classroom sizes, or adding headcount on the staffing side, because you can, you know, you gain 1 or 2 students each year, 1 or 2. Well, eventually that's going to add up to 10, 15, even 20 students, and then we may find ourselves in the position of needing to address our staffing levels. So it's not one of those like urgent, has to be addressed now things. It's just one of those things to keep in mind.
Well, it is also important to keep in mind that several parents have expressed satisfaction with the state level classroom requirements as far as the sizes go, and they certainly prefer the Hampstead School District's outline. So, I mean, I know we didn't make the decision lightly to waive the policy of classroom restrictions, but at the same time, it's important to be mindful that the parents believe in the policy that we have set.
Caitlin?
I would just like to add a little bit to what Jason said in terms of class sizes going up and how that stresses all of the resources we have. We also have an aging building, which as we are increasingly putting more and more kids in it, we do have to address. We take very good care of our facilities, and I think they hold up very well, but there are things that have to be addressed, and especially as our population at Central School looks to be continuing to tick upward. It's just something we have to keep in mind, both in budgeting and improvements going forward.
Yeah, exactly. The enrollment is going to, it goes hand in hand, and the enrollment is going to have an impact eventually on the facilities, and then decisions have to be made in budgeting what we're going to do with the facilities and renovations and maintenance. So it's all tied together, folks. Does anyone have any other comments on this? If not, I would like to thank Dr. Wilson for presenting this, doing a comprehensive job, answering all our questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Dr. Wilson, it's still you.
It's still me.
Department
we have
budgets.
our department budget presentations, and just to start the process, I just want to thank all the administrators and for the public who don't always see everyone. I did ask that everyone come here tonight because it's in a support of a district budget, both schools. We have Christos Koufous here, who is our facilities director, Doris Bucco, our curriculum instruction and professional development director. We have Dr. Clifton Dancy from technology. We have Dillard Collins and Deanna Poulin from Central School, Maria Denola and Beth Stevenson from the middle school, and Karen Gallagher and Francine Flynn. Thank you all for coming, and Nancy from the SAU, Nancy Lewisell, who's also here supporting the work of the district. So we'll start there. I do want to say that in the presentation here, you have a copy of it in your packet that you can follow along. We also have a PowerPoint, which we will be able to post on the website, after this. But when we start this process, we look at our departments first, and we have discussions at department level. And as you know, these numbers are always kind of being fleshed out as we go through this process. So these numbers are never static. And today, they're as best we have from our conversations from last week when we had our work session, with a few things added or taken out, depending upon some of those conversations. And the next piece of all of this is working with Jeff Dowd and making sure we lay in all the personnel, the staffing. We're going to have some discussions about staffing next week. We're going to lay that in. Insurances, all of that will be laid in as well. So we'll have a much better view come November 14th of what the district budget numbers are going to be. So this is kind of our starting place. So each department director and principal will get up to talk about their slide and answer any questions that you may have. But it's really a reiteration of what we went through at our work sessions. So as you see, when we start anything, we look at what our mission statement is. And again, following along the mission of the district, making sure that we have really good educational and challenging experiences for our students. We follow that, look for resources, and each one of the teachers has a conversation with their departments. Those departments have conversations at the school level with the administration. The administration then brings it to our level at the SAU, and then it's presented to you. We follow along district goals. We follow along the strategic plan, the school board goals, what we have for district goals, and the school goals, and trying to get them all in alignment so that we can have the resources available for the students. And it's funny because when I go on my walkthroughs and some of the kids, who are you, what's your job, what do you do? And so one of the things I always often say to the elementary schools is, I'm one of the people that help you get what you need. So I help you get some of your resources and some of the books and materials. And then I start asking them what they want, and they start ticking off all these things and toys I've never even heard of. So I know I have to do a better job at getting some of those things they really want. But we have to start somewhere. So the district goals is where we start, and then for the drivers for this budget are very similar to what we've had in many of the years that we've been doing this together. The insurance benefits, we did get the guaranteed maximum rate, which is 6.8% increase, which is better than the 10% that we've been hearing about. So it's all relative, but there's still insurance goes up each year. Special education, you will see that this is going to be a tough year for us in terms of budgeting for special education tuition, transportation, and services. It is going up quite a bit based on student need. And I have to give Karen accolades for the work that she does, she and Francine, in really having conversations with parents about making sure their students have the resources they need in district. Karen spoke to you last week about the process of going out of district. We only do that in a case where a student requires services that we cannot provide in a way that they need. You're going to see some based on some students' needs, either who have moved in or through court placement sometimes, that is going to generate a budget need that we haven't seen in the past. Enrollment, again, enrollment, HCS is up by, again, those 20 kids. The middle school will be down, and Pinkerton is up just slightly. So that'll make a difference. Our curriculum cycle, last year we didn't have any curriculum come through the budget process. This year we are, science. So you will see that in textbook and materials and online licenses. That costs us up front pretty much. That's why we have a cycle to do this on a continuous process so that it doesn't hit the budget too hard. We also have some technology infrastructure projects that corresponds with the technology plan. Dr. Dancy will be talking more about that. We also have some deferred facilities projects at both schools, and Mr. Kufus will talk to you about some of those projects as well, and we have plenty of time to prioritize those projects and talk more about them at the November meeting as well. As we develop this plan, all areas we look at, again, as you know, they're based on actual costs when we know it. We have estimated percentages in there. For example, we don't know what Pinkerton rates are going to be. I have a placeholder in there for 4%. So that's what we do for determining the costs. We will prioritize the projects. And to show you some of the enrollment information, I took the information from the enrollment report, and this is a separate slide that you can see for yourself what the projection is on the left, which is the projection for next year. It's in red. You have the actual numbers that are in the center column, and then what did we budget for? And it's always a decision. We decided to budget for the projection, which is what we did last year, and we still had 20 more kids. So when we project for the when we project with the projected numbers, it looks like we're going to have 24 more students at Central School. We're going to have 16 less at the middle school, which then totals about 8 more students from pre-K through grade 8. So we've gone up slightly in that area of 8 students. You will see that in the budgeting. We're going to talk about our departments next. I'm going to talk a little bit about Pinkerton, but I don't have much information to give you on that this time, but I will next time. So we're going to start with the departments, and Dillard Collins is going to start with Central School and give you some of the highlights of what's increased or what's decreased and what the proposed budget is, the current budget, and the difference.
Central School is actually relatively simple. The big number that's the push is the science textbooks that, as Roxanne said earlier, science is going to be the curriculum gain of this year. So the number that we came up with is based upon $52,000. That's to buy textbooks, materials, and that does have some online pieces. And Ms. Buchel's been working with the science staff to find the right program. But the bottom line is that's based upon the number of kids that we know we need to support next year. Reading workbooks, that's just a small number. In context, the backstory of that is that when we bought the new reading program a couple years ago, we actually had the salesman throw a bunch of extra workbooks into the purchase, so we're now into sort of a maintenance cost. So we did to elevate that number a little bit, so that's probably going to be a standard number moving forward. Information access fees, again, moving forward with more 20th century learning. This is going to allow us to purchase a few limited licenses focused on reading and math based upon some of the assessments that we do have that says the student needs a little bit of extra work here, sort of at the intervention level. We're buying a few limited licenses. We already have a couple of programs that are part of information access. The new equipment piece here is this is the one piece that I'm really trying to stretch the concept, but striker chairs, just to give you a real brief synopsis of the product, you can Google it, but they're emergency evacuation chairs. Basically what we would be doing would be putting an evacuation chair at the top of each of the main stairwells of the school building. So if we did need to do an emergency evacuation with somebody with limited mobility, whether it be an adult or a child, it would allow us to get them out much quicker and safer. It's actually a design that almost looks like they're just sort of skidding down a stairwell. The fire department, I spoke with both the chief and the captain, and they said they actually carry one of these products in the ambulances, but by the time, if there were a major event going on, running up the stairs with the device, he said if we had them there, it would be a lot more effective. I even consulted with our occupational physical therapists. One of them mentioned that they know that over in Londonderry, they have them in all the main stairwells of Londonderry High School as an example. So it is a common tool. Basically, you mount it on a wall, just like you would mount an AED or other safety devices on the wall. It has a local alarm, so no one's going to just open it up and play around with it and bring it out. But if you can Google it, and there's all sorts of story pieces about it, but it is definitely about emergency evacuation, safety of children. Library, we did budget $14,000 this year to purchase quite a bit of shelving in the central school. After completing the project this year, it's clear that we did need to continue with some more furniture in the library. That basically interprets to $4,500 of purchase for more shelving units to complete that project. And then a few more dollars that are in there for tables. I'm actually working with Mrs. Connors about maybe even deleting some of that number as we finish the investigation, trying to use some of the existing furniture. But that to me is the number that we had to get the ball rolling. But those are the biggies. The biggest number on that page, I can't emphasize enough, is at 489 students. There's going to be a cost there, but that's another conversation for another day. But enrollment pieces, we did build it all into our other pieces, but Dr. Wilson and I will be talking more about that later this week, and I think we'll be back in touch.
I just have a question. The science textbooks, could you just tell us how many grades that covers, or?
1 through 4? K through 4?
Okay,
And
so
those-
that's basically the
You
whole
want to speak to it, or-
school.
Okay,
And those are aligned with next generation science standards?
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, and they will be presented to the board for approval. But we need to budget for it, or else we don't get to purchase them.
Correct.
Correct.
Basically, you're going to see that at both schools.
Right.
And also the program workbooks, how many, does that go through a grade level, or?
You talking about reading?
Reading workbooks, yes, sorry.
First through third will be using that. That's
First, second, third. Okay. Thank you.
Would you just, for the audience, speak this slide so that people can hear it in the audio? What the difference is, excuse me, Dillard, what the difference is for your budget from last year to this year?
Currently, we have a budget for this current school year of $158,208. What I have proposed for you is a $219,000 budget, 356, 219, 356. The big difference is $61,000. The driver in there is at $52,000 for science, and then you have the striker chairs, and right there that pretty much summarizes it all. The other things are a few hundred, a couple thousand here or there, but that's really the big difference is those two major pieces.
Okay.
Okay.
And also, your, each liaison has the updated reports in their packets. So you would have this.
I have that.
Okay.
Yep. Questions?
And I just make a comment too on the, and I know it was mentioned kind of briefly, but for my fellow members, I mean, this is why we plan on doing curriculum on a biannual basis, so that we don't get hit with everything all at once. But it does mean that biannually, we get hit with a significant cost for one curriculum, and then in 2 years it'll be the next, and then the next, and the next. And that was, you know, I think that's a prudent plan for the district to follow, so that we don't get hit with everything all at once, while we're also trying to maintain, you know, the current curriculum and match the current standards.
Over a few years, we've done reading, we've done math, and now science is next. I think this is the least expensive of those three.
Yep. Thank you. Hi, Mrs. Denola.
Good evening, everyone. As you can see, the HMS highlights at this point in time, we are projected at, as Dr. Wilson said, around 400 for next year. Our numbers are increased by 1,050 for next year for more STEAM emphasis. IA stands for Industrial Arts. However, we know that's Industrial Arts, Engineering, STEAM. So these are for more acrylics, more 3D printer support materials. Our math textbooks have gone down this year by $2,300 due to our need from our enrollment numbers for this year. Our science textbooks, as Mr. Collins had said, with the next gen science standards that have come up, we are ready for a science textbook. So for our school, for grade 5 through 8, it'll be an increase of $63,039. This includes all the licenses and the online resources as well. Our LA, which is Language Arts workbooks. This is a program, these workbooks go along with our collections curriculum piece. This is at the 6th grade level. These workbooks are something that the child uses all year long, and it's a culminative dialogue of what they've learned from one piece to another with a final ending of their work. The teachers are very excited about this opportunity, and the collections program is proven to be very exciting for our kids, and this is an area where we would like to improve. Our information access fee, that is the teacher licenses and student licenses for online resources for our Tier 2 students who need remedial pieces through our response to intervention program. Our new equipment, we are down. We don't need the new equipment line as much as we did last year. That $7,862 is a decrease from, we had purchased projectors for the library and for the gym, and also a lectern that we use on a regular basis for presentations. Our PE new equipment, and that is spelled correctly, and it says 2,430 new, I believe it's chuck ball or chook ball. And we had our new athletic teacher, our PE teacher, had used this program out in LA when he was teaching out there, and it's a wonderful opportunity for kids to be involved in a team sport without having something thrown at them. So there's no goalie, there's a net that bounces. Every child has the opportunity to be on offense and defense, and everyone has an opportunity to succeed regardless of their athletic prowess. So it's a win-win. He was very, very strong on this, and we actually did look it up as administrators, and Dr. Metzler and Dr. Wilson checking this program out. So I encourage you to look at it and see the advantages of it, and how the physical education teachers around the country do use this with a great amount of success. Our replacement equipment is our walkie-talkies. Our walkie-talkies are 12 years old. They have a life expectancy of 5 to 7 years. So we've kept them going for 12 years, but they are at end of life. They do not make this model anymore, nor do they service them anymore. So it's time for new walkie-talkies. Our library new equipment. Last year I had presented to you the thought of having movable shelving in our library. Our library, as you know, is the heart of our school. This is where we have many community events. We gather as a faculty. We gather for town hall meetings at the grade level. Unfortunately, it's broken up and separated because of the stationary book shelving. So this year, we would like to go forward with that again, to have them on wheels. We can move them out, and all the school can enjoy them, as well as community members when they use that space. So I'm open to any questions you may have. So we propose for this year I'm sorry, wouldn't that be nice? $265,913. This current year's budget is at $182,816. It is a difference of an increase of $83,096. And as you can see, the majority of that is our science textbooks.
Questions?
All right, on the library equipment, I remember that we had approached this subject last year, and we put it off until this year. In retrospect, I wish we hadn't done that. But anyhow, we did. Do you have any viable use for the shelves that are currently in there? Would you be repurposing them? Would
I'm
the
sure
school
we will
continue using
repurpose them. This, as any teacher would know, you say bookshelf, and it's, yes, that's something we definitely would be able to repurpose.
And as I recall, last year, both central school and middle school put in for libraries. And Hempstead, middle school was deferred so that central school could get what they needed.
Surely.
So this is your turn this year, right?
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Regarding the professional development and curriculum budget lines, we are looking for an increase of $11,400, and this is due to the professional development that would be needed for our proposed science purchase. With this program, we would have in year one, we would have multiple training sessions. Some of the sessions would be day-long for teachers, and then the consultant also comes in and works individually with grade-level teams. And the next slide, so our current budget for our professional development curriculum lines, $28,155. The proposed budget, $40,475, the difference of the $12,320. This is due primarily to the increased cost for the professional development for implementation of our science program, plus some professional development materials for teachers that address our school and district goals. Any questions? Okay.
Seems pretty clear. Thank you.
I think the other thing, Doris and I have talked about this, is that as we see some of our resources for PD from the state level diminish over time from Title II or Title I, we have to start thinking about how we can make sure that we still provide that level of training for our teachers. And so, you know, this is an example of, you know, putting it in our budget. If we get Title II grant money, we use that as well. So, you know, all of that is kind of used in combination. But each year we get a little less for our district allocation. So we have to make sure we budget for this.
Roxanne, to what you just said, is Title I has to do with economic-based needs, correct?
Disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged students, yes.
Is Title II the same?
Title II is about professional development, and it's really connected to high-quality staff, is what used to be the term in previous years. But it's not really around a formula about student need.
Okay, so it has no income contingencies?
No.
Okay,
No.
all right.
But if I told you how much money we got, it's very little money. Where are we, 50? Are we even there at 50,000?
51,000?
Okay.
This year? This year. Is that historically about average?
It tends to decrease.
So it just, so it was something really great at one time and it's just dwindling away.
And there was some talk that we weren't going to have this money at all this year with the ESSA that was reauthorized, but they decided against that, which was good for small districts like us who rely on that money.
Okay.
Thank you, Doris.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to talk about the special education department, and I want to highlight on this particular slide the major budget drivers, which include tuition and special transportation. If we look at the top, the first one is the special ed programs in other public schools. That's an increase of $16,713. That is for student placements, and up there I have LRE, which stands for least restrictive environment. So sometimes when we're not able to meet the needs of certain students in our schools due to their educational disability, we look at the least restrictive environment, and sometimes larger school districts have more programs because they have numbers of students that might be appropriate for a given student versus sending them to another school that is solely with special ed students. So that's due to student placements. The next one is Pinkerton Academy. That's an increase of $84,719. Again, this is based on a 4% estimate. We don't usually get the numbers from Pinkerton until November. And typically, the 3 programs that we have at Pinkerton vary in cost, and sometimes the increase varies as well. And when we talk about Pinkerton Academy, we're talking about the special ed programs, we're talking about paraeducator support for students, we're also talking about extended school year, which is summer programming. The next line is private special education schools. That's an increase of $132,987. Those are specialized placements required to meet the needs of students. The next line is residential tuition. That one is an increase of $217,214. Those are required placements. And lastly, on this slide, we have specialized transportation. That's an increase of $11,478, and that's an estimated cost for student busing. And with transportation, I just want to highlight it's really hard to project 18 months out whether or not students will have shared rides where the cost is lower, or if they might be the only student going to a particular school and then it's an individual ride and the cost is almost double. So I have to budget accordingly. And then the next slide really focuses on highlights of the operational components of the special ed department. So the first one on the line is other professional services. That's an increase of $30,250. And that is based on increased needs for specialized services. And what I mean by specialized services, usually we have to have some people contracted with the district to provide services that we are unable to provide. Also in out-of-district placements, some of those programs do not include the related services in the tuition, so that comes out of that account for other professional services. Some do, but not all of them. So it's kind of both in-district and out-of-district needs together in that line. Textbooks, that one is down, $2,411. There's just, a decrease in need for textbooks. The next line is psychological information access fees. That's up $3,600. That is access for online scoring for evaluations, primarily by the school psychologists. And then we also have a curriculum and progress monitoring program that's being used for a number of kids. And then lastly is replacement equipment, and that is for the speech department. That's up $1,180, and that's for updated speech and language assessments where they have new additions, and we're required to not use old assessments when new ones come out. So that's what that highlights. The current budget is $2,556,650. The proposed budget is $3,049,610, and the difference is $492,960. Jason?
I just have a couple of notes on this as we kind of get into this. First and foremost, aside obviously from the legal obligation that this district has to provide adequate, I would say, quality education for our special needs students, we have a moral obligation to make sure that we're providing quality education for these students. And I know it can be tough when we look at a $500,000 increase. I am concerned that, as my fellow members know, we're out of space at the central school. And this year we have displaced Karen and her staff in order to do what we had to do in a school that we have outgrown and need more space in. Our ability, we've talked about this before, philosophically, our ability to provide these services in district is the goal. We want to provide as much services in district as possible. The challenge that we have is every time now that we displace staff members, that becomes harder and harder. And anybody who thinks that, thinks that we're not doing making our best effort to be smart about this and be good stewards of the taxpayers' money, I would challenge you to go and take a look at the central school and look at literally repurposed closets that we have, spaces for OT and PT and other services that we need to provide for our students. And the frustrating thing for me is that this problem isn't going to go away. This is going to get worse, and we're going to see more and more impact. And the challenge is we reach a breaking point where if we can't provide these services, they have to go out of district. And as we're seeing right here, and I am not in any way trying to say it's their fault. It's our fault if we can't provide the services. It's a dramatic cost, when that happens.
Right. And I will just add that we are really bursting at the seams with space. Pretty much every program is really being utilized, and there is not a lot of space. It is crowded. So we are lacking space for sure.
I guess I can insert this here. Caitlin and I had the pleasure of taking a tour with Karen of both the central school and the middle school special education spaces, and the amount of inequity that exists between the two school buildings is really troubling. And yes, absolutely, children in closets, more closets. How many more closets can we find to turn into classrooms? It's upsetting. And then you go to the middle school, and while certainly not any school is perfect, it's a much more beneficial environment to have these students educated in. And it's just unfortunate that we're not providing that for them at the central school. Now, this has nothing to do with your staff and the quality of services that they're receiving, because those people are dedicated, and they're going to get the job done, and they're going to do the best that they can for those kids. But it's just unfortunate that we're asking them to do it in closets.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out that it was many years ago that this town as a whole made a decision, and I think it was the right decision then, that we were going to keep our special ed in district as much as we possibly could, house everyone in district. It was the best decision for the kids to be in their neighborhoods with their friends and their neighbors and go home. And it was also the best decision for the taxpayers financially. It was just more cost effective. We're now coming upon a time, as Jason articulated, and you've heard it from Karen Gallagher, that we're getting crowded. And we're going to have to look in March to the town. This town's going to have to make another decision, and a decision that they're going to have to live with moving forward. Are we actually going to keep the same excellence in education that we've had? Are we going to keep the promise that we made to our children who are in special education? Or are we going to be forced to look seriously at other alternatives? Not that we want to, but it is what it is. If there's no room in the building, there's no room in the building.
Right.
And I think that people in this town really need to be cognizant of that, and they need to be aware of the fact that other decisions will be made if they have to. It's just the way it is. But just keep in mind, you know, that we've always had a tradition of excellence. We've always done what's best for the child, and we want to continue to do that. So, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll keep you posted with that budget as we learn more about the students' needs and projecting it down the road.
Good evening. This is the drivers that impact the technology budget. The first line is information access, and an increase of $7,619. The main driver for this is our website is now powered by classic Google Sites, which has about one more year left before they drop support on it. So I'm going to need to move our website to another service. And it's also come to our attention that some of our tools, like our mobile app and our website, don't always talk to each other very friendly. And our notification system that we have doesn't integrate very well with our current website or our mobile app. So the proposal there is to move all three of those services into one integrated system, and that's the major driver for this amount here. There's also some things that we've already implemented this year that weren't in last year's budget, like pickup patrol, that is included in that number. My new equipment line is drastically down, $95,659. A lot of that was the phones that we budgeted for last year in new equipment. The reason it was in my new equipment line is because it came from the facilities department, so I was not replacing anything in my budget, so it went under new equipment. We also had a significant amount of money that we used to enhance our 3D printing that accounts for this new equipment drop. Now, the offset of that is the replacement equipment, and our infrastructure, including the cabling, our servers, our switches, these things are aging to the point that they are a security risk, and they do need to be replaced as soon as possible. So this is really the first of 3 years that I'm going to be asking for the replacement of aging infrastructure equipment. We are on borrowed time with many of these items. The $107,825 includes the cabling. It also includes replacing the television servers, which are on their last leg as well, and the switches that all of the cables plug into. Finally, we moved our Power School, our student information system, Power School, to the cloud this year, and that is reflected in this $4,729 increase in software allotment, as well as SchoolMed, our online form licenses as well. So those are the drivers. My current, just the space bar. There we go. My current budget is $261,440. My proposed budget is $290,574 for a difference of $29,134. Yes, ma'am.
A general question. We're in the middle of, technology's in the middle of an audit.
Correct.
I would say, with Armon.
Yes.
Would it be in a best interest, I don't know when that's supposed to be completed, soon I would think, to take a look at that, to decide if the results of that would influence your budget decisions one way or the other?
Certainly, and I've already discussed some of these items with him, and that's why they're in this budget. So it may be even more that he would recommend. I'm not sure that the process has begun. We had an initial meeting. There's still more things to do, and I'm not so sure when it's going to be finished. Hopefully within about 3 weeks.
3 weeks. So that would be completed before the final budget is prepared, is that right?
We are pushing to get that done.
Okay.
But is that 3-week time frame? Is that from him, or is that your guesstimate?
No, that's my guesstimate. I've only met with him one time so far.
All right.
Because I think it would be nice to see those results
certainly.
before we finalize the technology
Certainly.
budget.
But I will say that we are, for the next few years, there are going to be quite a few requests for replacement of equipment. It is seriously aging equipment that needs to be upgraded.
Got it.
And relocation.
And relocated, yes, to move them away from the water filtration system.
Yeah, I think most of the members probably have seen it by now, because I've taken some of you in there on the tour. It's not, that cannot stay next to water tanks. That equipment.
I was actually going to ask that, because it says server room here, but then you mentioned the TV server, so.
Well, we have both.
Yeah, we have both, so it's both in the budget as well?
Right, the TV servers and the server room. Yes, there's a replacement of both of, well, not completely replacing the server room. That would be relocating or finding another solution to separate the servers from the water filtration system.
All right, so here's where it starts to get a little bit fuzzy for me. And I like to try to fit everything in a nice box as much as I can. And I actually already talked to you about this. And I had a couple of other conversations over the last week regarding this. I'm thinking, Jason, that you can probably answer this because you probably have the history on it. Before we had a technology budget, was this in the facilities budget? Was there like a technology line in the facilities budget?
It's spread across different budgets. It wasn't.
So this is a consolidation of all of the technology spending
So there was technology in central school, technology in middle school. It was spread out across other places.
But it was departments? Because some of this, to me, fits better under the branch of facilities, although I do understand that it is technology. But, you know, like when we're talking about the cabling, you know, part of the cost with the cabling is that we have to go back and remove all of the old cabling that was never removed for the last 30, 40 years at the middle school. So to me, that is a old facilities problem that's now on technology's plate. And yeah. So I'm just...
I mean, you're right. Look, technology, there's definitely a nexus with facilities. This is infrastructure. This is, we're really talking, yes, we can talk in the technology side with software licensing and things like that. That's not infrastructure. But when we talk about cabling, and particularly when we eventually get to talking about moving that room or changing the room that it's in or whatever, that's definitely, there's a crossover there, and we can discuss it. But I think it fits better in the technology side because it's managed by the technology department.
Well, and I think both you and facilities department head would have to work together to get these tasks accomplished anyways, especially when it comes to solving the server room water issue.
Yes, we'll certainly have to, though if we moved it to another room, which we already identified last year as a possible solution, a technology firm would pretty much do all of the work for this. There would be very little facilities, and no offense to my colleague, but there are some of the companies that he works with that I don't want him touching my cables. But no, you do need technology, a dedicated technology firm to come in and do that work. You don't just have any electrician come and do it. You have one that's licensed to do the technology equipment. Now, yes, the code of removal comes from an electrician's code. That's only because it's cabling, and that's where it fits. They don't have a separate technology code out there. This does follow, but because these are in the ceiling and they create a fire hazard, and really all of these building codes fall under fire codes for the most part. That's where you will go to find all of your structural codes, and the one that they found that fit best with the technology is in the electrician's code.
Okay. I'm trying to update my technology box and make it fit here.
So are we.
All right.
Are there any other questions? If not, thank you.
Thank you.
Christos.
Good evening.
Hi.
This year's facility budgets, we're seeing an increase of $19,900 due to the increase in the floor plan that we are going to actually implementing now that we were never doing before. The additional cost will come from the chemicals being used as far as strippers, waxers, and sealers on a more regular basis. Past history on that has been we've only done floor care during breaks. It's going to be more often as far as either bi-weekly or a monthly upkeep to the brand new VCT tiles.
Can I just ask specific to this one?
Yep.
Is the objective to extend the life of the floors by doing this on a more regular basis? Is that the impact?
That and a better look for students, teachers, faculty, people visiting the school. Because if you see if a floor isn't cared for, you get those wear patterns, and it's very simple. It's a cheaper, more effective cost than proper maintenance than it is to replace them. Heating oil, that's actually a 2.5% increase from last year. It's just a placeholder of 2.5%. That bid will go out along with Timberland's bid for a better price per gallon of oil at the November 1st. New equipment for the restroom cleaning machines. We're going to be getting a Kaivac machine, which is a low pressure hot water steam machine for proper maintenance. It's an additional cost up front, but it'll be saving time in a more cleaner bathroom for students and faculty, cut down on germs and during the germ season. Ground supplies is higher for more intensive care on that, also more fertilizing, top dressing that we haven't done in the past. To give our students a better field for playing and for people visiting the middle school. Replacement equipment is a new piece of equipment we're going to be getting at the middle school. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, a little more information regarding the Kaivac for the custodial, I'm sorry. The new equipment for the restroom cleaning, that will be universal as far as it'll be going back and forth between both schools. So one week it'll be at middle school, the next week, so it'll rotate, so one machine covering 2 buildings. Replacement equipment for the new floor machine, an auto scrubber at the middle school. It will coincide with the intensive floor care work that we'll be doing. Drop in this year's budget was due to the $260,000 roof repair that was done at the Central School last year. Any of the major projects for 18-19, anything that happens at the Hsdsb school could be taken out depending on the vote for the construction. So we're just putting those in there right now as placeholders. Restrooms will be done at both schools, which are exceeded their useful life. If you've seen those bathrooms lately, they're dated and need to be updated. Replacing the sliding door panels at the Hsdsb Central School with a new panel system that'll also include a door for better emergency egress off of the stage. Finishing up on the asbestos removal abatement at the middle school. This year, come June, we're going to be installing or drilling a new well that was budgeted for this year, for this fiscal year. We'll be doing that in June, and we want to follow up with the installation of the irrigation system in July. EMS controls is a phase 1 that could turn out to a four-phase project over the course of 4 years. And what that'll give us is taking that outdated system that we currently use and bring it onto a desktop unit where I can actually see every classroom, see who's using what for air, setting occupied times, unoccupied times, turning back the thermostat when needed, incorporating more makeup air from the outside to cool the classroom sooner before the kids get in, making it a better learning environment for them and more comfortable. This year's proposed budget is $877,685. The current budget is $1,093,000. The difference comes from the reduction in the roof cost, or we're not doing that roof cost repair that we did at the central school. Yes.
Questions?
Shoot.
All right. I think I'm going to go backwards, okay?
Yep.
All right. So HMS, EMS, HVAC controls phase 1.
Yep.
You will have the ability to set temperature controls
Temperature?
as well as air intake controls
Yes.
based on whether or not the classroom is occupied.
Correct.
And so this could result in an energy savings
Yes.
and also improve the learning environment. I'm really interested to hear more about that, but I'm not going to ask you a million questions during budgeting. All right, so HMS athletic irrigation.
Yes.
Is this a sprinkler system for the athletic fields?
I'm sorry, say that?
Is this a sprinkler system for
Yes,
the
this
athletic
is a
fields?
sprinkler system for the soccer field and the field hockey field.
Do we have the water to support an irrigation system?
Yes, we do. That's the well that was approved for last year that's being drilled in June.
Okay. All right.
We're not going to, my understanding is, I would assume we're not going to be able to fully irrigate both fields at the same time. So one field will be irrigated, and then we'll switch.
I don't know what you mean by both fields. We have the lower fields with the middle fields and then the upper fields.
The middle field and the upper field
The middle
are
and the
getting
upper.
the
All right.
irrigation.
I've definitely heard a lot of feedback, especially from the families of the field hockey athletes, that's the upper field, about the quality, the concern over the quality of the field that they're playing on and whether or not it's actually safe. So I'm going to jump to the supplies for the grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And the fertilizing and top dressing and that sort of thing. So that field is on your plan to address.
Correct. By adding those soil amendments, we'll give it a healthier grass, a better base, a softer landing for when you hit the ground.
I'm going to ask you a really silly question.
No silly questions.
It's a silly question. All right. I've seen purchases for lime
Yep.
come through, and this is previously when I checked the spending at the SAU level. I've seen the purchases for lime come through, but then I've also seen the lime remover for our water.
Yes.
Yes. Can
Hard
you?
water, yes.
Is this related? Are we?
I don't know. I'll have
Are we
to get
treating the
back to
ground
you.
with lime and then taking it out of our water?
Well, you can, lime has multiple purposes, so you can treat water with a lime. I'm not sure, actually.
Yeah.
No, and I don't believe we use too much lime on our fields. We use paint on all of our fields.
Okay.
So I'll
Yeah.
investigate that. And
Like I
let
said,
you know
this
more.
is more of a historical thing from
Yeah.
last year. Thank you for entertaining that question.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Now, the last one was the egress
Yes.
at the central school.
Mhm.
This is for on the stage that's
Yep.
in the cafeteria. There's the sliding door panels. We're currently using this for special education spaces as well as guidance behind the stage. So you want to build a door in that paneling, or?
Fire requirements. No, we want to install a brand new, we can't build a door in it because the way the panels are set up, they're not, you can't alter the panels.
Okay.
So we would install a whole new paneling system, and at one point, we would have an access door to go through
Okay.
to give it a proper egress.
And then stairs off of the stage? 'Cause I
Correct.
don't believe there is any at all.
No, there is not.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
welcome.
entertaining all my questions.
Okay, so the stage, though, we got permission from the fire chief to put special ed in that half without this door issue? When did this become an issue?
The permission that we received that we can put up a small group of people on that stage, which means roughly a class or less, which means when the therapies are there, you're talking probably a handful of students. I think if we had 5 or 6 students there, that would be a lot. And sometimes the school counselor would have a group of maybe, say, 10 or 12 kids at the most. So the chief said we are allowed to put up a small group of there. By having the egress on that, it gives us much more flexibility with that space. And as he explained to me, if you had an event on that stage and you need to get them out quickly and you had to go through one door, it's going to take too long. Having that second means of egress would be ideal, but not required. So his proposal is sort of a contingency if we do not have a new facility or an upgraded facility. That's the reason it's there. And it's my full understanding from our conversations that if the facility does get improved by the vote of the community in March, this project would not happen. We would be able to reallocate these funds to another facility project.
So this
Okay,
is
so
one
you're
of
going to
those
hold off
flexible-
on this? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So you're going to hold off on this actually until March to see if the,
Well, we'll do like, we have to do our
addition
due
passes?
diligence, which is to plan, just in case, because we don't do a project like that and to make a decision in April. So it needs to be built into the budget, and then, I can't emphasize one other piece of this. These project lists, I've watched this for 20 years, standing in front of the boards. This facility project is made in November, and by the time you get into June and July, some things change. And this is one that I hope changes.
yeah, I hope it does too. But that's what I'm saying. It's in the budget, so it's there if we need it.
If we need it. Yeah, and
And-
the
and
chief
we-
did tell me if we put a door there, we could put a small set of stairs out there so people could exit out through that single door, like a 36-inch door to make it compliant, and just set a set of stairs that need to be sitting there. They don't necessarily have to be anchored because that's a very
Yeah,
busy room.
they're movable.
But then we couldn't use the stage if they're not sitting there. So for example, if you're running weekend basketball and you want to take those stairs out of the way, you could, but during the school day, they're going to stay.
So it's okay to use it the way we're using it now, from now
Absolutely.
until March.
Yes.
If in fact the proposed addition does not pass in March, then this would have to be done, because we're not going to go a whole nother year without it. Is that correct?
It depends on what we use that room for 1 year from now, because I don't think that's been decided.
Okay.
Because there's been a lot of conversations what that room would be used for if this addition does not get approved.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we'll say thank you.
Thank you.
Pinkerton, the information I have for you is the enrollments first, the current enrollments and the projected enrollments, and what we are projecting for next year, which we are going to use the Hsdsb projected enrollments of 443 students, which is up 11 students from this year. We also have 6 students who we considered they're ungraded, and the reason they term it like that is because they're not assessed the regular tuition rate. They may be assessed a special ed tuition rate if they are in a special ed program, or there's also a program called Hsdsb, which is actually like a GED program that is offered by Pinkerton through the upper room. So the district proposed to have 1337, which is an increase of 19 students district-wide. Their tuition rate, if you look at Pinkerton's tuition rate at the next slide, you'll see what we have budgeted currently and what we have proposed for next year at a 4% increase. That will be an increase of $186,486 from the tuition rate that we have in the budget for this year. We normally get our tuition rates usually by the 1st of December. It's usually around right at the end of Thanksgiving when their trustees meet and vote on their budget. Then that passes through to us. So we have a 4% in there, and we'll wait to see what their conversation is going to be. resulting in. Okay? So I also just want to acknowledge that Jeff Dowd, who is the Chief Business Office Director at the SAU, is with us, was able to come. So if there's any questions you need from him, he's here. Our next steps is we are meeting with Mr. Dowd to follow up with salaries and personnel costs, the other district costs as well. We'll get the actual rates from Pinkerton. We're going to determine any changes to the bottom line as directed by the board. So, you know, the conversations that you direct us with. And then we need to decide on the warrant articles. For example, the capital reserve, the bond, which would be the school renovation and improvement project, the fund balance retention. Those are the things that we decide going forward November and December. So we have a little work ahead of us, but I thank you for your support and your involvement with your questions and direction.
Jason.
I have a question for Mr. Dowd. I'll let him go to the mic. I don't know if you'll have the answer for us this evening, but in the event that you don't, if you could just look into it and get back to us, it'd be appreciated. I understand there is some money available for safety and security. I don't know that it's straight building aid from the state. Have you heard anything about that?
19 million.
Yeah. Have you heard anything about that, about when it'll be available, how we apply, if Hampstead's going to even have a shot at that money or anything like that?
So as best I understand that Hampstead wouldn't be typically a target demographic of where they're looking to disperse those funds. My impression from that grant was that it was a safety and security grant out of surplus, and it was looking toward the western and northern part of the state. I had looked into it and asked Tom Geary as well to look into it to see if we could determine what the terms of it were, what the target communities are, schools are, and who is administering the grant. Is it the Department of Education? Is it a committee of the House, of the Senate? Who is in charge of that? We have not yet found any information on that. As soon as information does become available, I'll let everyone on the boards know. I just don't have any information. We had looked, and I found it informative that Concord is placing an emphasis on security and safety, however. So it seems to be a fairly common theme.
Okay, thank you.
If we get more information, we'll share it. I know that from what I've heard in my circles too, it is definitely going to be targeted to schools who are in desperate need and may have an income criteria associated with the applications. And from what I have been hearing, it's not the DOE, it's not the legislator, it is a separate entity of 4 or 5 people who are going to be meeting and making those decisions on the applications. So we will keep you posted, but.
Do you know who 4 or 5 people from where?
Well, that's
who do they represent?
We don't know.
For some reason, I'm under the impression, and this is just the idea that I have, I don't know if I read it somewhere or heard it somewhere, but I'm under the impression that this is Governor Sununu's initiative, the $19 million. There's a certain amount of it that he wants to go to the 3 different causes, and I believe it's a committee that he's appointing to review the applications. And, well, I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of applications, but nonetheless.
I just want to make sure we don't miss out for lack of applying. Yeah, if we get denied, we get denied, but if, I just want to make sure we're tracking.
That's what we said at the last meeting when you weren't able to be here. We said we should apply, and if we get rejected, we get rejected, but at least we applied.
I know Mr. Geary is kind of the lead person on this, so he's keeping tabs on it as well. I haven't checked in with him today, but that was the conversation I found out on Friday from some colleagues that I spoke to. That's about all that I have for information.
There is a certain percentage that's supposed to be allotted for internet connectivity too. So, I mean, if we fill out 3 separate applications, then we fill out 3 separate applications.
Okay, before we move on to renovations, Mr. Sweeney has a question of Mr. Collins.
It might be a segue to the renovation project. So tonight we heard a lot about space stations at the central school. Kathleen and Caitlin took a tour and saw the deficiencies in special ed. Chris is talking about projects that may or may not happen depending on a vote. Looking at predictions of a prior year, we were off by 20 students. Is that right, Dr. Wilson?
We have 20 more students enrolled than we were projected to have, yes.
So if you look at the NASDAQ predictions over the next 5, 10 years, if you had 538 students in that school right now, what would you say to us?
I can't meet their needs. It's as simple as that. We simply do not have enough space to do it and maintain the program the way we've been doing business. You look at the numbers, I'll just speak to numbers a little bit. We were at the 440, mid 440s. We hit the it was 465 on October the 1st. I got 5 new kids in the past week. I've got 1 more coming next week. So we've cracked that 470 mark. That 480, what is it, 489 for next year, I think that's a very real possibility that we're going to hit it. I wouldn't be surprised to see us exceed it. I'll speak from the regular ed perspective. I don't have enough classrooms, which means we're going to have to do what we're currently doing in 3rd grade, which is to change our class policy practice, which means right now we're looking at our 3rd grade right now, one of the room has hit 25. The others that are at 24 will have another, just happens to be a 3rd grader moving in a few weeks. So those are some realities that are going to happen. We may have to explore doing that same thing in other grade levels if we do keep going, scaling up to the number that you're speaking. Special education, we've already compressed some of the service providing. For example, I know you talked about what's happening on the stage, but it's happening in other places around the building. We've crammed 2 speech pathologists into a much smaller space that are providing services to students just a few feet apart, which is not at all an ideal situation. And then you could keep going into the other therapies, such as the occupational and physical therapies. That was the reason the community opted for the portables. So since clearly this board has made it abundantly clear that's not an option, so we're going to have to get very creative and figure out other ways to do it. So go back to what you're asking. This community will not be able to provide the same level of services that we are doing even now, which is less than we were doing a year ago.
Thank you.
This goes back to what I said before, and I really can't stress it enough for the members of our community, of which we are all members of our community. We're board members, but we're all taxpayers. We all live in town. And come March, our community is going to have to really sit back, take a hard look, and make a decision where they really want education to go in Hampstead. I think we've heard it here tonight with the increasing enrollment and the numbers that we're seeing. We cannot continue to expect our administrators and staff to be able to provide the quality of education in facilities that's aging, working in closets with kids. It's not going to happen. And to keep kids, you know, if I hear anyone say, well, put it back in the portables, well, that's not going to happen, because the kids of Hampstead deserve much better than being in portables that aren't safe, that aren't secure, and that don't have bathrooms and running water. So, you know, we're doing everything we can as a board to put forth an alternative that meets the needs of the students and the taxpayers in this town. And all I can say is people need to take it seriously and take a hard look at what we're looking at and where we want education to go in Hampstead.
Can I just quote a conversation? I won't quote exact words, but I'm going to give you the essence of a conversation. Some of you know I like to have lunch with kids. I had a group of 4th grade boys in this week, just happened to be guys, because I had a girls thing the day before. But I just simply said to the kids, you guys are 4th graders. Some of you have been here 5 years, 6 years. Tell me about some of the things that we need to be thinking about for your school, for your brothers and sisters, and for the future, and some of the things that have happened here. And the children, these are fourth graders, would have very likely been in a portable this year. They were very thankful that they weren't in the portable. But one of the little guys said to me, "But Mr. Collins, I still need to go out there for ventures." Okay. And another one says, "Yeah, we still have to go out there for music. We would like to have that inside of the school." This is the kids speaking, and it was not prompted. It was just like, they, of course, told me wonderful things about how much they loved Mrs. Eaton, and Mrs. Daly's the best thing ever happened at Central School, and all those wonderful little stories. But that one spoke really to me, because you keep talking about the community members, but these are your kids saying, thank you in some way, that, you know, I don't have to spend my day out there. They talked about what you spoke about, a bathroom, running in and out through the snow in the winter, and all those pieces. They didn't speak about some of the security pieces that we've focused so much on. I don't know if they're fully aware of that, which is fine with me, but the kids know what's going on.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a quick update. There's really not a lot to report out, other than the construction committee is moving forward. We have received proposals from several construction management firms. We are meeting with 4 firms this Friday. All the firms seem to be kind of equal in capabilities. This is to meet them, to get a look and see what their vision is, how they would work, what the chemistry is between them and the architect and our people that they would be working with in staff here. So that's taking place, and that's the big thing. We will be making that decision. We'll meet with them Friday, hopefully make a decision very soon after that, and then we will have a construction manager on site, ready to go if this passes. Okay? That's all I have for that. Finally, we have our policies. These are for first read. There are 7 of them. Policy IHAM, JICD, IMDA, GCCBC, JHBB, BIB, and IHDA. As I said, it's for first read only.
This first read? Oh.
Yeah. We've done this in policy, so it's our second.
That's why I know well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll make,
Second for us. Wait a minute.
oh, sorry.
Rather than going through all this, there is one here, policy code IHAM, that I just want to speak to for the general public, for parents who may be concerned. It's called Health Education and Exemption from Instruction. This was first adopted and approved in 2010. Everything stays the same. There's still an opt-out procedure if parents want to opt out. The difference is, and I'll read it right now, parents and legal guardians shall be notified by email, other written means, website, social media postings, or phone calls, not less than 2 weeks in advance of use of the curriculum course material to be used for instruction of human sexuality or human sexual education, that the material is available for inspection at the school. The notice will identify and provide contact information for the member of staff or faculty member whom a parent or guardian should contact to arrange an opportunity to inspect the curriculum course material. That is what has been added. That is what is new. Parents have that capability to come in and inspect it 2 weeks prior. I just wanted that out there so people know it. Everything else is the same. You can still opt out, follow a procedure that's in place. It gives parents an opportunity to actually see what's going to be taught and discussed. Okay, other than that, I will now accept a motion to move the 7 policies onto the second read.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Board comments and correspondence. Anybody?
I have a burning question.
Burning question?
A nagging question. We had made the decision to bring the 4th grade classes in, and we had left the next part of that plan for, I believe it was around this time, but I don't see it on the back burner list anywhere, and I don't know what we called it either.
I'm sorry, tell me again.
When we had made the decision to bring the 4th grade classrooms inside the building with their peers.
Right.
We had put out a lot of other options as well. And we said, well, we'll start here and we'll pick this conversation up at a later point in time. And I was, for some reason, I'm remembering that we said October, although it's budgeting season, so I can't imagine that we said October, but I don't see it on the back burner list.
No, we said that it would be because at the time, I think Dr. Metzler was sitting there instead of Dr. Wilson.
Okay.
And we had said that we were going to do this almost in phases.
Right.
That was the term that was used, to bring the 4th grades in as a phase 1. Because we thought at the time to bring in ventures and music, especially music, would really overwhelm not only the staff, but the environment. So we did that, but we know, we all talked about it, we know that those kids still shouldn't be out there. And we were going to have that discussion again on what we could do, if anything, to bring music and ventures into the core building. So that's what you're remembering, and you're remembering it correctly.
All right.
We do need to have that discussion.
I'm looking at the upcoming meeting agendas, and I'm wondering if maybe we can pencil it in for November 28th, perhaps? Or you set the agendas, and so you'll know better.
Yeah, why don't you let Dr. Wilson and myself
Right.
take
Okay.
a look at what needs to come on, because there is an awful lot of budget material
Yes,
also
there is.
moving forward.
Okay.
But yeah, we will. Thank you for bringing that up.
All right.
So just for my clarity, it's more about a discussion of space needs, especially at the central school, a continuation of, so what do we do, especially if we're going to have 20 more students join?
That's right.
Okay.
Phase 2.
Phase 2
Phase
of
2, what does it look like?
bringing all the kids inside. And what does that look like?
Is it possible?
Okay.
Okay, any other board comments? No? No. The only thing is, I was walking across Emerson, and I made sure I welcomed Paula Maroon here. She is our second crossing guard. She's at the top of the hill, where Donna Carr is at the bottom. Donna was training her one day. And lovely lady, loves the kids, smiling and happy. It's really nice that before the kids actually enter the school, they've been greeted by 2 crossing guards that really seem to love the kids and smile and talk to them. And it's a nice way to start the day. So I just wanted to say I'm glad that Paul is on board, and welcome here. Okay. Consent agenda.
I don't have a personnel report for you. I do have just a couple of items. The enrollments are pretty stable from our last meeting's numbers. Pinkerton has gone up a couple of kids, and I haven't heard about the 5 students until today for the elementary school, so I'm sure that'll be added. November 1st is Ascending Schools District meeting at Pinkerton Academy. I believe you've all been invited to go. If you want to attend, you need to let us know, and we'll RSVP for you. I cannot attend. I think Dr. Metzler is going to attend that night.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you might get more information about their budget at that meeting.
Can you repeat that date for me, please?
November 1st?
I don't think I've received an email on that.
It's usually an
invitation.
It came in regular mail?
Yes.
Oh,
And
maybe
it's usually
I
a
got
little
it.
card.
Okay.
Note card.
Right.
This week. Was that beginning of this week, Saturday?
Let Kathy Belcher or myself know so that we can get your names on the reservation sheet. It's quite a nice dinner. that the students put on. I just also want to let you know that Dr. Metzler has talked about closing the SAU office during the holidays, so I wanted to give you those times. At noontime, the day before Thanksgiving, Thanksgiving Day, the day after Thanksgiving, which are typical days, December 25th, Christmas Day, December 26th, the day after Christmas, and close January 1st, New Year's Day. So I just wanted you to be aware of those closures. Budget work is still getting done, as obviously you just saw. And just to let you know, I guess the Energy Committee is meeting this week. And I don't know the agenda, but Jim, I think you've been talking with Mr. Geary about that. And
It's Thursday, yes.
it's Thursday, okay. And the Homework Committee had one of their meetings, and I heard that it was a very good conversation, and you're moving right along to the next meeting. I guess everybody got their homework for looking at some of the research.
There's lots of homework at the Homework Committee, it turns out.
See, if we didn't have homework, the committee wouldn't have homework.
But we're going to check that homework to make sure you did it, right? So just wanted to give you a little bit more of that update. That's all I have for the consent agenda. Can you approve?
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
A second.
All in favor? Is there any other business to come before the board?
Real quick question. You named the committee? It's officially the Energy Committee, Jim?
No, no name.
No, no name. The no name committee?
No
Oh,
name
come
yet.
on. Can we have the kids? Can we tell the kids what this committee is
Well,
supposed
I
to be
think that-
doing, and then have them pick out names?
Maybe. We'll
can
talk
we do
about
it
that
that
during the
way?
first meeting.
That's an agenda item.
That's on the
Pick a
agenda.
name. All right, that's all.
I have a motion to adjourn, please.
So moved?
All in favor? Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:51.